Aloha and welcome to Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. We air live every Thursday at 2 o'clock from the Think Tech Studios in downtown Honolulu in the Think Tech Studios. Very high tech here. We've got a record number of guests today. We've got 3 guests from the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. And we're kind of breaking format just a little bit. We're going to be deviating from talking about successful stories in Hawaii, where we learn all about the tricks of the trade and how to have a successful business here in Hawaii. And we're going to learn a little bit about how some of the support groups help us deal with some of the challenges that we have here in Hawaii. And the Small Business Regulatory Review Board is one of those key players in keeping an eye on things that happen in a state and helps small businesses address some of those challenges. We've got the chair, Tony Borge, the chair of the Small Business Regulatory Review Board here today. We also have the vice chair, Harris Nakamoto, and then we have the Maui County representative, Kyoko Kimura, who's also joining us today. So thank you all for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I guess for the audience, there may be some confusion about exactly what is that Small Business Regulatory Review Board. So can somebody explain a little bit about how it came about and what it does and how it works?
Well, I guess back it started in 1998, legislature passed the bill to establish the Small Business Flexibility Act, I believe, and then eventually it became codified and became the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. Came out of that. And in essence, what it is it's advisory. It's a total voluntary board, and it's an advisory board to the legislature, to the governor, and to the neighbor island mayors as well. But on rules and regs that affect small business, and the idea being that small business comprises the bulk of the business community throughout the state.
Oh yeah,
employs over half of the private workforce.
Exactly.
So it's basically we know we got to live with rules and regs, and the idea is to make it so that it's not it doesn't create a negative economic impact or stifle the economic growth of small business. So it's to propagate and promote small business.
Right. And to your point, Tony, 97% of all businesses in Hawaii are defined as small business. And think of the impact to the economy if those businesses all of a sudden shut down.
Yeah.
It would devastate. We would not have an economy here. It would really cause some big issues. And I think to your point that we need to make sure that we don't have too many of these rules and regulations that stifle that economic development is very important. And Harris, you're the vice chair. I mean, that's a pretty important role, isn't it, on the board?
Yeah, it's very important. We're dedicated in terms of, dedicated in terms of the work that we do. Many of us have come from families that have had small businesses and understand the sacrifices that need to be taken in terms of running a small business. And that's why we, understand, but also have compassion into advocating for small businesses in Hawaii. And so for us, we volunteer and represent. For myself, my role or my history has been under healthcare. So a lot of the Department of Health or Department of Human and Health Services are those types of rules and regulations are some of the topics that I kind of gravitate to and kind of make sure that we are looking at the impact that they may have on small businesses here in Hawaii.
How many members of the board do we have?
9 board members.
Right.
9 board members. And they're from the different islands, and there's representation for statewide.
It's required to have at least one from each county.
Very good. And how are they selected?
It's pretty much the state senate basically puts forth 3 names or 3 people for the board, and the House of Representatives, Speaker of the House, same thing, And then the governor also does, proposes 2 people or puts forth 2 people to be on the board. And then there's also one person who's from DBED, which we're administratively under, who's an ex officio member on the board. And it gets pretty much ratified by the Senate. And as far as, if anybody wanted to get involved, volunteer to serve on the board, because it's totally voluntary. And the criteria is, small business or been in small business, presently in small business or been in small business. And, you can pretty much send your name into the boards and commissions. I mean, for any board, really, within the state system. So we always welcome that, by the way.
Well, is there, I know you have a website. Is there a way that somebody can volunteer through the website?
I'm not specific to a Small Business Regulatory Review Board website, but I'm sure, we can, you can send us the email, we'll refer you
And
to
then
the Boards and Commission website,
Right.
yeah.
Because there could be people that would be interested in
Sure,
finding out more
of course.
information about it, and that could be good. Now, Kyoko, you've been on the board for a while?
Yes.
And
4
how-
years.
4 years. And so you went through this process
Yes.
of selection, and how was that? How did that work? Was it tough?
No, legislators are very welcoming, and
Good.
somebody found me available, and I work for the hotel company. Most of the hotels have less than 100 employees, so we represent the business less than 100 employees, which is a little different from the definition of the SBA.
Yes,
But
the SBA definition is a little bit more than 100, but probably 100 is closer to reality.
But those are the small businesses who's really busy attending their business, and they're not going to come out to testify, especially from Neighbor Island.
That's right. They can't afford to.
Yeah, definitely.
That's right. Yeah, and the neighbor islands particularly. It makes it tough. Maybe one of these days they'll allow a Skype testimony or some sort of video conferencing type of capability, which I'm actually surprised they haven't been doing already. But,
That is, it can be done. The other thing is, for us to do more outreach and go to the neighbor islands or to the counties. Because, the way it's structured is, yes, one person or one member, board member from each of the counties. And by the same token, as far as background, no more than 2 people from the same professional or background. So it gives you a good cross-section. But the idea is to get cross-section not only of profession or business type, but also the counties, across the state.
Right, because every county has a slightly different set of issues that they're dealing with. Yeah. Can somebody explain how the Small Business Regulatory Review Board actually functions? How often do you meet? How the issues are presented? And, what is the process? What do you guys spend all your time doing?
Well, our board meets monthly, and we have a pretty set schedule. Usually it's the 3rd Wednesday of the month, but sometimes there are some exceptions, but normally it's the 3rd Wednesday of the month.
Is the public welcome to
Most
join
certainly.
in? And so the meeting dates would be publicized, maybe at the DBED website, or you do have a website of your own. I would imagine the dates are there too.
Yes, we do.
And that website, I believe, is dbedt.hawaii.gov/SBRRB. All right,
Pretty
I'll
lengthy.
repeat that later too. So, but if they went to DBED, they could probably find it somehow, through the menus. So there would be, every month, the 3rd Wednesday, and the public is welcome.
Public is welcome. There's a set agenda that would be going out, so the public will also be available to see the agenda items that will be discussed. And normally the various agencies of the state would be submitting to our board in terms of policies or proposed laws that they are looking in terms of for their specific agency, and they would answer a questionnaire that would address whether small businesses would be impacted, and some other questions that we would ask them in terms of the certain law or policy that they're working on. So we would receive, say, these requests that would come from, Department of Health, come from Department of Agriculture, consumer departments on
DCCA.
taxation, DCCA. And each of the board members have specific agencies that they would be kind of married to in terms of focus. So we have each have relationships with those department directors in terms of introducing ourselves so that there could be some advance or more proactive discussion and as awareness. Usually after they present, then the board would also comment, question, pretty much in depth on that specific topic. We would also then have a vote to decide whether to, approve for whether it be public hearing, as well as, or to move forward in terms of our support that would go to the governor's office on that specific law or policy.
So you're, if you take the position of supporting a certain change or rule or regulation, you'll recommend the approval to the governor. Does it go to the Senate or the House at all, or just to the governor's office?
It goes to the governor's office and the agency head of the agency.
Some of for the county mayors.
Yes, yeah. It's a state board, and basically with the state agencies, anytime there's a statute that comes forth from the legislature, there's more than likely under the different department agencies, there's going to be rules and regs that got to be promulgated.
Right.
And that's when if they fill out an impact statement like Harris said, and if it affects small business or there's a negative impact to small business, then they put the measure before us, the rule and reg.
So it sounds like a very interesting process because you have both the agencies that are proposing the rules and changes, and then you also have a different constituency, if you will, that's affected by these proposed changes.
Yes.
And so you may have an interesting group of people in the mix here in the room at the same time, both having maybe sometimes a opposing view on certain things.
That happens.
Yeah, I would imagine. And so as the chair, you're going to be...
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's what we kind of welcome. That's what we want to see, because that's the democratic way. That's this process, and we need to have that. We need to have the small business people out, especially if it's impacting them in a negative way. And of course, we need to hear from the agencies that need to put forth the rules and regs.
Right. Right. Now, Kyoko, what area do you have? Harris was talking about being married. I'd like to be married to the Liquor Commission, but don't tell my wife that.
I'm married to Transportation, DCCA, and the other department doesn't really propose.
Not much activity over there.
Mostly DCCA, who sends a lot of amendments.
I would imagine.
Department of Transportation.
But you know what? We're at the 15-minute mark, so we're going to have to take a quick break. But when we come back, let's talk a little bit about the DCCA and then also transportation, because I would imagine that would include something like the rail. All right, but this is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. We're going to be taking a short break. We're talking with some of the board members of the Small Business Regulatory Review Board, and we'll be back in about a minute.
Aloha, how you doing? Welcome to Hibachi Talk. Gordo the Texar here. We're here every Friday from 1 o'clock till about 1:45, and we talk tech with many, many great guests. So I got Andrew, the security guy who helps me co-host, and I got Papi Chulo, who comes in once in a while to help us through the show. So please come join Hibachi Talk every Friday. Angus will be here too. So remember, like we say at the end of every show, how you doing?
You're watching Think Tech Hawaii, offering lifelong learning from passionate hosts and fascinating guests ready to explore and explain Hawaii's place in the 21st century. Great content for Hawaii from Think Tech.
Aloha, my name is Richard Emery, host of Condo Insider. More than a third of Hawaii's population live in some form of association, and our show is all about educating board members and owners about their responsibilities and obligations and providing solutions for a great association. You can watch me live on Thursdays, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. each week. Aloha.
Aloha and welcome back. This is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker, and I'm here with the chair, the vice chair, and the Maui representative of the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. And we were just getting into Kyoko's discussion about some of the areas that she's looking at that she's responsible for on the board. So it sounds like the travel and DCCA are the two big ones that you handle?
Yes, I do. The transportation, as you know, the rail is a big issue. It's coming up to our agenda in the near future, but we have sunshine law that we didn't public notice about this discussion here today, so I cannot discuss this in detail, but please keep your eye on the agenda and send testimony.
All right, and that agenda would be published on the website that we referred
Yes.
to earlier, so they can just go to DBED and they'll be able to find the Regulatory Review Board section in there.
Or the Lieutenant Governor's website. So
Okay,
yeah,
Lieutenant
it's linked. So
Okay, so we'll be able to be sure to go in and hear what the update on the rail is. Are you allowed to talk, I mean, who from the rail is going to come and talk? Is the rail itself coming, or is it other, or is that something we can't really go into?
Yeah.
We are hoping that the Department of Transportation will send somebody
Okay.
to, and the city of Honolulu.
Now, that should be a lively
City.
discussion.
Yes,
Now, I've
city and
been-
county of Honolulu.
And I've been to your board meetings a couple times. You might need to get a bigger room. So that'll be.
That's another, sunshine law prohibits Skyping unless that location is publicized too.
Okay.
And if you calling from your home, that you have to open up your home for the public.
Well, that sounds fun.
That may
good.
not be a good idea.
You know, I guess it's good. I mean, people don't like to have those back office discussions and decisions being made, you know, and transparency is important, and that seems to be a real buzzword these days. So I guess, you know, it may be awkward and a little bit of a challenge at times, but I think it's all with the good intentions of just making sure that the public is fully informed on what's going on and how the process works. So it's hard to knock that. But you do have topics that you each have your own little area of, I guess, focus or specialization, which is kind of fun. I mean, it would be difficult for everybody to try to be informed knowledgeably about everything that's going on.
Correct.
It's got to be a challenge. So, moving a little bit from the board into the actual board members. Now, all of them have had some experience in one way or another with a small business. And, you know, why don't we start with Kyoko? And what is your small business experience? I know you mentioned it earlier, but I just want to kind of give the audience a flavor of the different board members and what they do and what they bring to the board. So, please.
I've been in hotel business in Hawaii for the last 25 years. So I'm very familiar with the tourism. I was on the HTA board for 8 years too.
Oh, very good.
So very keen to liquor rules or labor rules. Oh, I'm in charge of labor too, by the way.
Oh, that was the other one.
That was the other one. That sense, one controversial one was what was that?
The overtime?
Insurance.
Oh, insurance. Because I know they just passed the new rules on overtime too, right? On
yes,
Wednesday.
yes,
Yes, and that's going to have an impact.
definitely will have an impact on small business.
Yeah, that's basically doubling the amount of employees that's going to be eligible for overtime pay. I think the base, and these numbers may be a little off, it was like 23,000, now it's up to
47,000.
47,000. So if you're making more than 47,000, there's room to be exempted from overtime, but anything less than that automatically is qualified for overtime. And I've been hearing a lot of stories about how that's going to impact employment. Hours are going to be reduced, positions are going to be reduced. There's going to be mandates that no overtime is allowed, period, and people are actually going to end up getting hurt over that. You know, so it's a controversy. It's a controversial subject or law that just got passed. Is that something that I guess would be on the agenda. I guess that's more of a federal issue than it is a state.
At this juncture, yes, you're right. Hopefully it stays that way. But, as a small business, though, that's very concerning. I mean, everybody knows, because you're absolutely right. It's, as a small business, you're going to look at either you're going to have less people working. You're not going to be able to pay the overtime or to keep it to the level that you are now, unless, your business has to be growing exponentially. And, it just doesn't happen that way. It hasn't happened that way in the last 5-6 years.
Well, and we don't want to go too into the detail, because I want to get back to the board discussion, the actual members again. But, talking as a CPA for a second, and you, Kyoko, probably know from your hotel experience, margins can be pretty thin.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a whole lot of profit in some of the product and services that you're selling. And all of a sudden, you have half your labor force automatically become eligible for overtime pay, whereas before they weren't. That could quickly throw you into a loss position, and companies that have contracts, that have obligations, are going to be stuck losing a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a challenge. That's going to be tougher, I think, not only for us here in Hawaii, but throughout the country to deal with. It's too bad. But taking off my CPA hat now, so you had a lot of experience in the visitor industry and very broad, so you bring a lot of that, and that's certainly a big component of the economy, and so you're...
It is the economic engine.
Yeah. So very important.
Mm-hmm. So some rules and regulations are killing those engines, and it's our role to protect that from happening.
Exactly. And Tony, how do you make a living other than being the chair of the board here?
That's a good question. I've been trying to figure that one out. Right now, well, I started out. My mother used to run a small little restaurant when we were growing up, so and got involved with that and Okazuya, and always loved small business. So had some small little. At one time, I even started this. My wife and I started this mobile video rental business. Of course, now it's it doesn't make any sense because you got the internet and all that. But this was before the internet. But anyway, so I got dabbled in that, and then eventually I did grow up, and work for different companies. Now it's small business I work for is we manufacture louver jealousy windows and the security screen doors, stuff like that. And it's a very small company. It's a locally owned company. We got no more than 20 employees. The day-to-day trials and tribulations of running a small business, I'm fortunate that we got people to a good team to work with. But if you don't have a good team or even smaller group, it makes it more difficult. Adhering to all the meeting all the rules and regs that are out there across the different agencies.
It's tough.
It is tough. So this has been getting involved. Started from being involved with the building industry and the chamber. I was at one of the meetings, and they said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to get involved." And at that point, I didn't know that what it would entail. And evidently, I did get involved, and 5 years later, whatever, I'm here, still on the board. But to me, it's a valuable asset that is needed as an advocate. Looking after small business. I mean, rules and regs are pretty much going to be there. We just got to make it where it's it doesn't hinder small businesses.
Right. We got to always keep a watchful eye on that.
Yeah.
Harris, your experience comes from. I know your parents had their own business for a while and helped you get an education, and now you're doing something a little different.
Exactly. I'm very fortunate. My parents were barbers and grew up in Kali Valley, and so barbering. Actually, my mother started the shop, and right across Farrington High School, and I think it's having your own business is really America's dream. Being able to to establish business, to work, and for me, for my parents, education was very important. So I was blessed that I could, go to Iolani School, and then go to college away in California at Redlands University. And then coming back, my career has been probably in 30 plus years has been in healthcare, whether it be in the hospital systems with the physicians, and then currently with Kaiser Permanente.
Healthcare, that's not regulated, is it?
Oh, yeah. And a big thing that came up this past couple of years has been Obamacare.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a biggie. And so, small businesses, that's a hefty price in terms of running a business.
Well, and a lot of people, I don't think, appreciate the fact that most businesses in healthcare are small businesses. There's only a few big players. The rest of them are pretty tiny.
Yes, exactly as you say, the groups that fall into the category of small business in Hawaii is probably close to 98%. And so, and these are, in the category that, I hear the word 100, but they're, 50 and less. And so they contribute to the economy in terms of taxes.
Tremendously.
Taxes. And so for, being on the board, I guess my background in healthcare was a component, but also having the understanding of small business. And also, because as Tony and Kyoko mentioned, it's a volunteer position. So there's no real gain. You have to be really, your heart has to be in it in terms of where you're going. And so for us, I think we have a great board. Also, the composition of the board being having representation by all the various counties, whether it's Maui, the Big Island, Kauai, provides great perspective for us, because a policy that might come out from a certain agency, maybe on Oahu, not big of a deal, but on Maui or Big Island or Kauai, it really can impact a small business, because
Well, and the counties themselves may have limited resources available to it as well.
correct. And so having that perspective and being able to understand that is very powerful in terms of the board.
It is, and you've got, and I know there's 3 of you here, but there's other 6 members of the board that is also a cross-section, different islands, different industries and types of experience. We've got about a minute before we go on our next break, but Tony, give us a real quick flavor of what some of these other board members, where do they come from? What kind of industries?
Sure, we got a board member from Kauai. She's in the advertising business. She does the trade publication there. Barbara Bennett, who's
she just won an award.
That's right. Congratulations, Barbara, by the way. But and she's been very. She's a very good board member. She and that's the thing. What like Harris was saying is that you got people who are pretty much dedicated to the cause, who will voice their concerns and speak on behalf of not only their industry but where they're from as well. So there's the Kauai, Barbara. There's individual from the Big Island, Garth Yamanaka, and we got from Kyoko's from Maui, and then the other person that we have is Nancy, who recently joined us. She's from Oahu, representing the I guess the nursing healthcare as well, but more the nursing side of the industry. And then also from the retail manufacturing side, we got gentleman Rob from a packaging company who joined us recently as well. So we got a good cross section of people, and from industries across the industries as well as the island. So.
Well, that's good to hear. And we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about maybe some of the issues that we're able to talk about, and maybe the process of how bringing those issues to the table for discussion and how that works. All right, but this is Business in Hawaii with Reg Baker. We're here talking with the Small Business Regulatory Review Board, and we'll be back in just 1 minute.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, and one of our delights is to be partnered with Think Tech Hawaii and produce programs every week. Every Monday at 2 o'clock, we have a show called E Hana Kako, which means let's work together. So we bring people from all across the nation and the country, and certainly throughout the islands, together here to talk with them about how to work together, and how to work together to do the following: to build a better economy, a better government, a better society. So if you're interested in the research of our think tank, the Grassroots Institute, or if you're interested in how that's applied at the governmental and community and business levels, you'll enjoy the fascinating conversations with our guests on E Hana Kako every week on Think Tech Hawaii at 2 o'clock on Mondays. Until our next show, I'll see you. Aloha.
Welcome back. This is Reg Baker, Business in Hawaii. We're here with the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. And we're talking a little bit about the process of how matters can be brought to their attention and what they can maybe do about addressing some of these matters. So who would like to try to explain the process on how that works?
Okay, well, I'll take a stab at this. Basically, the agencies we spoke about earlier, there's a form, an impact statement, a small business impact statement that the agencies have. So when they're reviewing an existing rule, or if it's a new rule being promulgated, they would fill out that form, and there's like a list of questions, I think about 12 questions or so on there. And if there is a business, or if they see a business impact to small business, they would send it through to our board, and we look at it, and if it is, where we find out that it is a definite impact to small business, then we put it on the agenda to be heard. And normally the format would be, the agenda under the sunshine rules, we follow that, the posted on the agenda, and the stakeholders would have a chance to submit testimony, as well as the agency on the measure. And that's where it gets heard at our board meeting, and questions get asked. But previous to that even taking place, whatever's provided by the agency, on the rules and the statute, all that comes to the board members, which we pretty much got to read up on and be kind of well versed on before the meeting.
Sure, well, that helps with a more meaningful dialogue.
Right.
There are policies that it does affect small businesses, but some agencies circle no impact to the small business, so we do read them carefully.
Yeah, and that's probably just an oversight.
So if there's an impact to small business, then normally the procedure is, when it's coming to us, it's to a request for a public hearing. And how it works is, we can either, if there's questions from the board, we put forth and bounce it back to the agency to get answers, and they come back again and provide us with the answers. And eventually, if it's the board approves, it moves forward. We advise the governor basically to allow the agency to have a public hearing on the matter. And then at which point they'll come back to us after the public hearing with whatever testimony was provided, and we get to review that as well.
And anybody can submit an item to be reviewed or considered for review.
Yes.
All right.
And that we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Small businesses are very time sensitive, so we want to make it as easy as possible. If there's a negative impact to your operation, to your small business, on an existing rule, or a rule that's being talked about, we want to hear from you. So that's why we're looking at, hopefully on the website, kind of making it a little bit more interactive, where they can actually submit.
Well, that'd be great.
To us.
That'd be great. Yeah, I know. And I mentioned earlier, I'm sitting on the Small Business Administration, the SBA's Regulatory Review Board, Fairness Review Board, at a national level. And we do have that simple one-page form that can be filled out in probably less than 5 minutes and submit it, and it would be sent actually right to the director of the SBA, who would have access to the president, because she sits on the cabinet. Should it become, in her opinion, that important. And in my opinion, anything that affects a small business is that important. But, you know, and I think there's probably ways that we could collaborate, you know, at both the national and the state level to try to get things done, because I would imagine some of the rules and regulations that create challenges here locally are probably mandated at the federal level. You know, and so you may even get some of that, but there's not a lot you can do about it.
No.
And that's where maybe we can work together on some of this.
Definitely.
That'd be great.
You know, besides at the state level, state agencies, we also have measures that is submitted to us from the counties. You know, if it's a rule or reg that is concerning to the agency in the counties, and it affects small business, it comes before the state Small Business Regulatory Review Board. And you know, we get a chance to chime in and advise, and we've had quite a bit of, I must say, of submittals from the neighbor islands, especially, yeah.
And so your suggestion or your review results would actually go back to the mayor of that
Yes,
county?
yes.
Very good.
And the respective county department agency.
So that sounds to me that your role is bigger than just statewide. It's includes counties, you know, and that adds a whole new dimension to, you know, what's going on.
As an advisory.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, and that's I guess that advice coming from people who've got the background and the experience and have lived through it has credibility. And I would assume people do look at that and consider that in their decision-making process. If they don't, then they should probably be replaced.
But you know, sometimes it is not. We're not just you know, benign vanilla type of board. You know, sometimes the feedback we provide can create quite a reaction. And nonetheless, we've had some that
And who catches the flack for that? Is that the chair?
Tony does. Yeah.
But most of the agencies are very cooperative, and we appreciate them taking the time.
That's good. And now when I go to the meetings, you're usually in the D-bed and T building. How active are they in this process?
We have a board member from the department
Ah,
who's a voting member.
okay. And so it sounds like they're very involved then.
They are, you know, we've, DBED has been very supportive, especially, you know, this year. I mean, it's been great. You know, they have a new director, Luis Oliveira, and we've had tremendous support. In my years being on the board, this is about the most support that I've experienced. I mean, the board has experienced, and you know that's a welcome, very welcome, you know, thing, because it wasn't that way. We're more of a, I guess, I don't want to say a stepchild, but you know, this is more like being part of a family type thing. I mean, you know, everybody got a job to do, and you know, we got to speak up for small business, but we also need the support of the agency, and that's great.
You know,
You know.
DBED, Department of Business and Economic Development. I mean, and it's hard to have business and economic development if everybody's being choked with unreasonable rules and regulations.
Yes.
So you would think that would be almost part of their charter to help, you know, promote and make sure that these rules and regulations aren't unduly tough.
Yeah.
You know, and so it makes sense to me anyways that it would be over DBED. And it's great to hear that they're supportive. And I think it's Mark that's the board member, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, well, great
Mark
job.
Ritchie, yep.
Yeah, good job to Mark. And I'm not sure whose pocket it comes from, but I'm sure you've got all the funding you need, right?
As a matter of fact, no, we don't. But like I said, we've been grateful. And like the support we've had this year, especially, you know, we've been putting in for a funding request for the last 2 years to kind of have additional staff for our, I call her our executive director, for Dori Pakovich, because you know, she's a force of one, and there's quite a bit of material that comes through. So we've been trying to get a added position in there. We've tried the last 2 years. This is the closest we've ever been. That's all I can say. So we're going to put it forward again next session, and hopefully we do get the funding for the staff position, and for us to do the outreach piece of part of the board. The advocacy piece is getting the small business people out there to know that we exist. And
Absolutely. That
getting the word out.
awareness and that outreach is critical to your success. Yeah. And I know, I'm the chair of the Small Business and Entrepreneurial Committee for the Chamber of Commerce, and it was part of our package to support that request for you to get that funding. And I believe we provided some testimony on that and supported that. So, we're close, but we're not quite there.
No.
So next year, we're going to have to try just a little bit harder.
That's right. That's right.
Very good. What type of outreach do you do? I mean, what is it that you're involved in to get the word out to everybody?
Well, we've been invited by various chambers, whether it be local, neighbor island, and for us, it's really, as Tony had mentioned, is looking at more of a proactive role that we can play, because receiving rule changes from the agencies is pretty much reactive versus getting requests from small business owners about certain rules that currently are impacting their business. So I think part of us going out into the community, getting greater awareness is really our key. And through the chambers, through different community events, is and as you can tell, even our name of the board is a mouthful. So just to be able to explain Small Business Regulatory Review Board is so I think getting maybe a shorter name or abbreviation may be something that we will want to look out in terms of outreach also.
We try to meet with the directors one-on-one too, so that
It's good to have that relationship with them
Yes.
so that they can feel comfortable reaching out and communicating.
Yes.
Maybe even giving you the heads up when they're thinking about doing something.
No, that's the key, Reg, because the process, to me, if you bring in the stakeholders early enough, the small business person, like I said, you're going to have rules and regs, but you bring them in early enough, I think it'll be a much smoother process and wouldn't be as detrimental as it can be to a small business. But bring them in, the stakeholders in early, to help with the promulgation of the rules, rather than at the end of the process. Makes it very difficult to change.
At least that way you have some influence in maybe massaging it a little bit before it becomes final. Because changing it once it's final,
It's difficult.
yeah.
Yes.
And not only preventing from that rules to happen, but we want to encourage that amendment that impacts better way. Like there are some introduction of, for example, assistant physician was allowed to do more than before, so that is a very good impact to small
It does. It
business.
addresses the shortage of physicians.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And
wish we
cost.
had more time, but we're at the end of the show, and we have to shut down right now. But I'd like to keep that door open. I'd like to have you come back again, maybe in a month or two, and get an update and see how things are progressing. I'd love to get some people to submit some forms. So please, anybody have any issues out there, please send it in so we can take a look at it and hopefully make some changes.
We do have one opening on the board. We're looking for a board member.
Oh, we're looking for a board member volunteers. So if you're interested, go to the Lieutenant Governor's website and follow the link and go to the Small Business Regulatory Review Board and let them know of your interest. This is Reg Baker, Business in Hawaii. We air every Thursday at 2 o'clock, 2 to 3. I'm hoping to see you all next week. Aloha.